Good morning, friends. It is December 4th, 2019. Do a little bit of a recap and also a reminder for those who live in Portland, Oregon or thereabouts that tomorrow night will be the last night where we have a publicly open Lattice gallery that's on Southwest Broadway, not far from Union Station. Actually, I should have said Northwest Broadway, not far from Union Station. It's near the North Park blocks, near the Pacific Northwest College of Art. We've been catering to the art community actually, and they also have access to um, my private tour service, which has been a good experience for me, meeting some people that way and getting to know and reconnecting with people I know already. So I have some videos that go back over my previous visits to Lattice Gallery. If you don't know what that is, scan back a little bit, but it's all connected to this geometry, which this channel is largely about, which is a geometry that is accessible to like high school and younger. You don't need a PhD to read this stuff. You don't need to wait till you get to the university. You can bone up early, and especially if you're going into graphical arts or architecture, because this will give you what? A simple way to memorize. It's like mnemonics, it's a way to hold a lot of geometric information in your head that was maybe never spelled out so clearly in other competing books, and therefore there's competition here, and therefore the usual techniques of cutthroat competition and smearing your foes and whatever. And Fuller does get into some polemics in his works. He is competitive, right? He's kind of a capitalist. He talks about how Russia's winning the Cold War, but thanks to him, he's showing that capitalism really does mean something. But then for him, capitalism means using your head, right? Cap, head. He's kind of poetic in his meanings. So you're the art school in town and you've been watching these videos, you're a teacher, and you know that you could teach this stuff. Probably better than I do. I set a fairly, I won't say low bar, but I try to show that, I'm not using super high technology, or I'm lucky enough to have technology that a lot of people do have already, such as Python computer language, Jupyter notebooks, access to all this geometry already published as of the 1980s. So, really, pretty much everything was there when I was born, you could say. Well, not quite. I'm not that young, really. So, around the time I was majoring in philosophy at Princeton University, the Buckminster Fuller bubble was at its height in a way, its zenith of influence. There had been a counterculture swell of interest in Fuller, and that kind of morphed into the human potential movement. We had Earhart and the S training, and Fuller and Earhart in Madison Square Gardens. In terms of sheer audience size and large numbers becoming aware of his work, that was probably an apogee. And I was part of that apogee. In other words, I was coming out of the university having only glancing understanding of what Fuller's writing was about. Whether it was going to fit into the philosophy department or not was I kind of gave up going to grad school in philosophy so I could see where synergetics might take me. Was that going to be a fruitful philosophy going forward? You need people to pay attention, and I felt like, well, I could pay attention and teach high school math at the same time, and that's what I started doing. I also volunteered for the Earhart organization for a while. I have not done the forum though, landmark. So but I have a lot of friends that do it, and I go to graduation sometimes. Anyway, here is the concentric hierarchy that I'm talking about that will streamline your understanding as an artist of just basic geometric relationships. You don't have to worry about physics or, engineering at this point. You could say this is purely Platonic stuff, and yet it takes you deep into computation if you want to go there, and especially the ST and E module and phi scaling discussion is going to give you a nice workout that's still very accessible. It's not super higher dimensional. It's not machine learning, so you can use machine learning nevertheless. There's no saying that because you're learning this, you can't learn something else, right? It's not that kind of thing. It's not a roadblock. It's just a nice to have, and I would say more than nice to have, because as you come to comprehend what Bucky's contribution was to the civilizational story, he's one of the greats, then your understanding of history will also take on a new spin, perhaps worth a test, especially regarding Malthusianism and recent USA history. I'm not even sure where this is going to take me, maybe nowhere. This is an old, okay, this was University at Buffalo had a listserv that was accessible to the public. Believe it was called Geodesic, and they took it down. They took it offline. But there are lots of resources for you out there. If you're new to this whole domain, then my YouTube channel is a good repository of information, but it's not tightly organized. With hyperlinks and indexing, even re-editing and resequencing, my videos could be the raw material of some interesting curricula going forward, right? So they have a lot in them, but at this point, it's like, how would you find it, right? It's kind of everything's a needle in a haystack. However, I don't cover too many topics. Like, I do make forays into contemporary timeline, politics, and so forth, but I don't go into it so deeply that I lose myself in that sort of timeline stuff. I do keep coming back to like the mites here, made of two A's, a positive and negative A, you could call them, or left and right. They're like inside out of each other, you could say. Two A's and a B make, and that's a left or a right B, make what we call a minimum tetrahedron. It's just a name he came up with. There's a clever set of names to which David Kosky added half mite and called it smite for semi-mite, but also smite is kind of a pun. I like smite for half mite, but there's more than one way to cut a mite in half, so you have to look at the picture. Anyway, I'm playing here. I'm looking down because I just folded a cube out of a chain of mites, and if I open this up and kind of turn it inside out, if I can do this quickly on camera, I'm a genius, because usually I'm not, right? So I will thank the coffee gods if I'm able to get this. But a rhombic dodecahedron has twice the volume of a cube, where the long diagonal of the rhombic dodecahedron is equal to the long diagonal or the face diagonal, excuse me, of the cube. That's the thing. This was the face diagonal of the cube. But now what we have is the space-filling rhombic dodecahedron, so fascinating to Kepler. Lots of geometry here. Nothing's changed about the angles or anything, but the volume has gone to 6. Nice whole numbers, right? So that's what these web pages and websites are about. And how we get to 6 is from multiplying the way you see on the screen right there. That's a regular tetrahedron all gridded in, right? And we're doing A times B times C. And in this case, that's 2 times 2 times 4, nope, 5. And that gives that slanted tetrahedron. You see the one inside the grid? So this is like high school level kind of stuff, right? That has a volume in our tetra units of 20, 2 times 2 times 5. So you're not changing the number outcomes, of course, of doing multiplication. Multiplication stays the same. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. But how do you actually show that to people? How do you illustrate that 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, that's where the Martian Math syllabus comes in. If I just go Martian Math and DuckDuckGo, what's going to be a search? This is what search engine people are doing all day. Like, if I search for my site, am I going to find it? You think vanity searching doesn't go on at the corporate level? My goodness, that's all that goes on. What do I look like, right, compared to my rivals? So Martian Math Wiki Educator, that's a good site. That's also Oregon Curriculum Network stuff. It looks like Wikipedia, right? But it's just the same Wikimedia engine, which is free open source. Remember, the design science revolution that Fuller anticipated expressed itself in many ways, and in one way, it still hasn't done much with the housing, because we're waiting for aerospace to get its head out of mass murder, right? But once that happens, then we have a bonanza to look forward to with the open source piece already back in place. The problem with this toy, which is, you can see I'm still fiddling with it. I did get it to be a rhombic dodecahedron, and I have another one over there, a magnet one that I usually show and tell. What else do I? Here's a rhombic dodecahedron. I'm trying to get it back into a cube. This is the volume 6, and this is the volume 3, and the relationship is long diagonal of diamond equals face diagonal of cube, and I use these to fill these with rice and stuff, or beans, and I've gone around the world already. By the time you see this video, I've already shared this with kids in Lesotho. You can look that up. Problem with this toy is I don't want to be too hard on it, right? It's the kind of, I had a kid once in one of my classes who just liked to break stuff, right, and get away with it. It was like, what can I get away with? Can I break the teacher's toy? Yes, I can. The teacher let me get away with that. Wow. What was I going to do anyway, right? That was the thing. So there's a lot of power stuff that goes on in school where the kids are like in control. And I'm saying, well, take control of the curriculum while you're at it. In other words, are they not teaching you any of what I'm showing you? Because if not, then you have every right to, like, I would say, be somewhat distracted, because what primrose path are you being led down if the work of America's most promising futurist, most hopeful futurist, is not being shared with you on purpose? You know, I go into classrooms and I see what's up on the walls, and you know, lots of different schools, public and private. I have a job that has taken me into many schools, and I see that all of this geometry that I'm talking about is quite suppressed. The teachers are not interested in sharing it with you. And to me, that's disturbing, right? And so I come on YouTube like this, and I'm like, I used to be a high school math teacher. Hey, if I were teaching high school math now, you can be sure this would be in it, right? All this stuff, right? I'm not going to get it back into a cube, apparently. I'm just going to babble on and never get it back into a cube, which is unfortunate. Because let me try one more time. So that's the corner of the cube right there. Right there. But I just don't want to, I need to turn it inside out, basically. And that's not so easy to do, right? So here we go. Okay, we're getting it. The inside out is critical. And now we have the cube, right? And so it's this long diagonal that is the long face diagonal of the rhombic dodecahedron. Now that 1 to 3 relationship is not unique to synergetics in any way, and this is what confuses people. It's like, have I said anything new? And the question is, how did this cube get to have volume 3 and have such an easy diagonal of 1 or 2? Depends if you're measuring in diameters or spheres. I mean diameters or radii of closest packed spheres. So at the Lattice Gallery tomorrow night, you'll see these spheres, but they're not closest packed. They're in the positions of closest packed spheres at Lattice Gallery, but they are shrunk down to be within their bounding boxes. And then we have a system of struts that keeps this all connected. I'll show you here. It's kind of tangled up like this, right? You've seen this before. This is C60. It's kind of, I usually keep this outside, but I have some inside here. And it's very flexible, which is why it's called flextegrity. And these spheres, if they were to get bigger and touch each other, then we would have what's called the CCP, and that's very established mathematics. So I'm mostly just giving you a good introduction to streamlining of everyday, ordinary, sort of college level mathematics, but we're doing it much younger because it's much more accessible when we allow the tetrahedron to have unit volume and unit edges at the same time. And that's what you don't allow in XYZ math. That's kind of the breakthrough. And once you get that, then that's the golden key to Fuller's writing in a way. Okay, well, I'll talk to you soon. I hope that was elucidating.